Good afternoon. The first item of business this afternoon is portfolio questions, and the portfolio on this occasion is education and skills. A reminder, members wishing to ask a supplementary should press the request to speak buttons during the relevant question. And I call question number 1, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how many university students have benefited from free tuition since the Scottish Government abolished tuition fees.
Minister Ben Macpherson.
Analysis of data from the Student Awards Agency Scotland, otherwise known as SAS, shows that approximately 740,000 students, so around 750,000, have benefited from free tuition fees on higher education courses between 2007-08 and 24-25.
Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Minister for his answer. And it is gratifying that 740,000 people have benefited from free tuition here, when students in England and Wales are about to face tuition fees of £9,535 per year. Can the Minister assure me and my Aberdeen Central constituents that university tuition in Scotland will always be free under the SNP?
Minister.
The Scottish Government is indeed resolute in its commitment to free tuition, which ensures that higher education in Scotland is based on the ability to learn and not the ability to pay. Free tuition is a policy we stand by, and tuition fees will not be reintroduced under this SNP Government. For learners, this helps them in a situation through their studies not to accumulate as much debt. For example, students in Scotland are undergraduate students in Scotland are, through free tuition, do not accrue a potential additional fee debt of around £28,000, which in other parts of the UK, of course, is significant. For example, in England, it's around £53,000, the debt that's accrued. So we have the lowest average debt in the UK. We also have really impressive rises in widening access, and also collectively, of course, state-funded investment in higher education is to the benefit of us all.
Thank you. Supplementary, Miles Briggs.
Presiding Officer, what consideration have ministers given to equity within the current loan-based system, which, according to the 2024 London Economics Report on the examination of fees and funding in Scotland, suggests that graduates who earn less over their lifetime pay back in interest more than graduates who earn a lot more money, predominantly benefiting men to the detriment of less well-paid female graduates?
Minister.
Well, Miles Briggs, of course, raises points around debt accumulated through SAS, through student loans. And as I have mentioned, in Scotland, because we do not have tuition fees, that debt is much lower for students studying in Scotland than in other parts of the UK. As I stated in my last answer, the Student Loan Company published in June 2025 show that average student debt in Scotland is still the lowest in the UK, which is around £17,990 compared with England, which is £53,010. So I take the point that we need to continue to consider how those loans are repaid, but every Scottish student starts from a basis of having less debt on average.
Question 2, Willie Coffey.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government how AI might shape the future curriculum in Scotland.
Minister Ben Macpherson.
We are committed as a government to ensuring that children and young people are equipped with the skills and knowledge to live in a world in which AI is ubiquitous. To this end, the curriculum improvement cycle led by Education Scotland is continuing at pace. This will ensure our curriculum remains relevant, better supports high-quality teaching and learning while examining the skills, knowledge and understanding that children and young people will be required to develop. This will include consideration of the place of AI in the curriculum, with specific academic expertise feeding into this process.
Willie Coffey.
Thank the Minister for that answer, and he may be aware of some of the discussion on AI taking place at the Economy Committee. The opportunities for education in the areas of lesson planning, marking, research and materials prep are very attractive, but there are clear risks too. Will the Government's revised strategy due in the spring next year embed a clear sense of responsibility and ethical standards within any AI framework for our schools? And could he see the day when young people at school will be able to use their own personalised AI assistants to help them on their own learning journey?
Minister.
The member is right to emphasise the work of the Economy Committee. I would also pay tribute to the work of the Education and Skills Committee, because a number of committees in Parliament have been looking at this issue, and of course, as I spoke about, the curriculum improvement cycle is looking at this from a Scottish Government perspective in terms of the curriculum and our young people, but across government and society we need to think carefully but also rapidly about how we respond to the technological revolution of AI. The economies that will succeed in the 21st century through all reasonable objective analysis are the ones that will utilise AI effectively. So we do need to get to a place where our young people and others in our economy know how to use AI, yes ethically, yes responsibly, but also productively.
Douglas Ross.
My supplementary is just on the bit about the continued development of the curriculum. And of course, exams play a role in that, not just gauging how students have done, but if the curriculum has been set properly. And I want to ask the Minister about an SQA report looking at marker recruitment, retention and experiences, which is detailed in today's Herald, about ongoing serious concerns about the 2024 Higher History exam. Markers in this report have been critical about the exam, how it was set and how it was marked. Some markers are now discouraged from marking on behalf of the SQA. They say the standards were inconsistent and lacking transparency. And they also said leaders who were part of the markers meeting spoke to people in unprofessional ways. I have tried and tried and tried to get answers from the government on this. Will the Minister commit going back to the department and asking for a full review of the 2024 Higher History result, because markers are still raising concerns and some of them are now not going to take part going forward?
That is not relevant to the original question. Minister, is there anything you want to add? I'm happy to allow you to do so.
I simply add that I appreciate Mr Ross has put that on the parliamentary official report and on the record, and as ministers we will consider what has been raised and I will inquire with officials about if and when an official response or a ministerial response can be issued to Mr Ross on these matters. Okay,
thanks, Minister. Question 3, Marie McNair.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government when it last met with COSLA and the trade union, education trade unions to discuss concerns about the presence of asbestos in school buildings.
Minister Natalie Dawn-Ennis.
Local authorities hold the statutory responsibility for managing and controlling asbestos in their schools. However, the Scottish Government continues to closely engage with COSLA, local authorities and the Health and Safety Executive on this issue. Furthermore, the Cabinet Secretary met with NASWIT last year to discuss asbestos in schools. It's important to note, I think, that health and safety is not a devolved matter, and the HSE holds UK-wide responsibility for enforcing the Control of Asbestos Regulations 2012.
Marie McNair.
I thank the Minister for that answer. The potential for exposure of asbestos in situ can be avoided with its removal. The EIS and other trade unions and many campaigners support the phased removal of asbestos from schools and other public buildings. Will the Minister request that the Cabinet Secretary meet with me and the Clydebank Asbestos Group to discuss how we can take forward such a policy in Scotland?
Minister.
So we absolutely recognise the concerns about asbestos in schools and, of course, other public buildings. Since this administration came to power, over 1,150 school infrastructure projects have been completed, and this significant investment by local authorities and the Scottish Government has helped to reduce asbestos within the school estate. However, as mentioned in my original answer, local authorities do hold the statutory responsibility for managing and controlling asbestos in their schools. For that reason, I would really encourage the member and the Clydebank Asbestos Group to raise this matter directly with the local council.
Supplementary, Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer. As highlighted in the Chamber during the debate on the Action for Mesothelioma Day earlier this year, Scotland has got one of the highest rates of mesothelioma in the world today. Statistics show that female teachers between 2011 and 2018, 94 lost their lives in relation to some asbestos-related condition. The general female population is only 1,800. That means teachers represent a 0.5% of the female workforce. This is critical to them, and it is critical going forward, as been mentioned by the EIS. I understand that the Scottish Government feel the responsibility lies with councils, But what can the Minister say about the Government's responsibility to all the people of Scotland with regard to asbestos, which is an insidious and horrendous product that causes painful and long-lasting periods before death?
Minister.
Well, I appreciate the seriousness of the issue that Mr Whitfield raises, and of course the Scottish Government, as I said, recognises the hazard of asbestos. We expect local authorities to provide a safe environment for all school users. As I've already mentioned, Health and Safety Executive has a UK-wide responsibility for enforcement of the control of asbestos regulations. However, recognising the seriousness of this matter, we continue to engage with COSLA, the Health and Safety Executive, local authorities and other interested parties to explore setting up a working group to see what further progress can be made.
Question 4 was withdrawn. Question 5, Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it has revised the funding model for hiring further education and apprenticeships to ensure it reflects current requirements.
Minister Ben McPherson.
The Scottish Government is investing over £2 billion to give people access to education, training and other activities that help them prepare to succeed in life. The Scottish Funding Council and Skills Development Scotland are responsible for the details of how that investment is distributed. But the work underway to reform the skills landscape seeks to ensure that we have the most effective structures in place to meet our post-school training, education and skills needs in the future. We continue to work closely with our agencies and stakeholders across the economy to respond to the challenges currently facing sectors. And I am aware that there are specific challenges affecting some institutions and sectors, and happy to meet with Mr Gibson to discuss any of those in terms of his constituency interests, if that would be helpful.
Kenneth Gibson.
I thank the Minister for that helpful answer, and I'd be delighted to meet with him. Not all courses are the same. Delivering an engineering course averages £10,000 a year, health sciences £8,000, IT £7,000 and business £6,000. Does he agree with Audit Scotland that core funding should reflect the true delivery costs of a course, and that targeted funding for STEM subjects and capital investment in advanced infrastructure is vital if we are to provide greater opportunities for young people and secure the economic growth essential to Scotland's future prosperity?
Minister.
We are grateful for what we have received from Audit Scotland, both in terms of the report that was published a number of weeks ago and also what they relayed to the Public Audit Committee this week, for example. We are seeking to deliver an interconnected series of reforms that will make the post-school education system simpler, more responsive and more agile. And we are also improving career support, creating new national skills planning arrangements, along with colleagues in the Economy Directorate, enhancing apprenticeships, modernising qualifications and seeking to ensure that funding is targeted at the right opportunities. There are great examples in Scotland where business and higher and further education are working together to make sure that we fill the economic needs in regions and make sure that we provide opportunities that people can benefit from, like Ayrshire College that I visited this week, also City of Glasgow that I was at this morning. So there are situations where there is greater need for consideration in terms of funding, and I'm grateful to the member for raising that today in the Chamber.
Okay, a couple of supplementaries. First, Pam Duncan-Glancy.
Thank you, President Officer. Trade unions have highlighted major concern on engagement during the Government's reforms to skills. And this week they have contacted me specifically to say, and I quote, "It is clear that decisions affecting the workforce are being made in forums where neither staff nor representatives have a voice. They've requested representation on project boards, but this has not been prioritised, and they're also unclear whether the changes will result in compulsory redundancies." So can I ask the Minister, does he believe the trade unions should be represented in the process, including on the project boards? And will he take the opportunity now to guarantee no compulsory redundancies and publish a detailed workforce impact assessment before any changes take effect?
Minister.
Well, I thank the member for raising these important points. I would just say that in the short period of my tenure in this role, I have sought to engage proactively and reactively with trade unions. For example, this week I've met the UCU, EIS and I attended an STUC event this morning. So I want to engage with trade unions on the issues under my responsibility. In terms of the specific points that have been raised by the member, if either the member or the trade unions or both want to write to me on those matters, I'll of course consider that correspondence very carefully.
Thank you. And Miles, please.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Data from HM Revenue and Customs shows that £875 million was raised by Scottish employers from the UK-wide apprenticeship levy between 2020 and 2024. But research has also found that during the same period, SNP ministers have spent just £704 million on apprenticeships. Can I therefore ask the new Minister, what investigation is he implementing to find out what's happened to the £170 million which hasn't gone to apprenticeships, even though that's what the levy is meant to deliver? And is this something he will look towards more transparency needed in the current bills going through Parliament?
Minister.
The situation with regard to the apprenticeship levy and considerations about how that is spent in Scotland comparatively with other parts of the UK, there are particular technicalities and nuanced arguments that have been set out to Parliament several times that we need to consider, and I've relayed that to stakeholders, including members of the business community in my tenure in this role so far. What I would say is that engaging with employers on the apprenticeship levy and the provision of apprenticeships in Scotland is a key priority for me and the Government. We, of course, are delivering a record number of 25,000 modern apprenticeships at the moment, but is there more demand for apprenticeships in our economy and our society? Yes, there are. Our Minister is determined to help increase the amount of apprenticeships where we can with the resource that we have in order to meet both the needs of the economy and to help our young people to learn and succeed, and those who are retraining, crucially, to learn and succeed, then yes, that's something that's a priority for us. I thank the member for raising this important point and look forward to further engagement with him and stakeholders and the business community on these points.
Thank you. Question 6, Michael Matheson.
To ask the Scottish Government what support is currently provided to local authorities to improve literacy, numeracy and outcomes for young people while tackling the poverty-related attainment gap.
Minister Natalie Dawn-Innes.
Over the past decade, £1.75 billion has been invested through the Scottish Attainment Challenge to close the poverty-related attainment gap in literacy and numeracy. We are seeing an impact with the literacy attainment gap in primary and the literacy and numeracy gap at level 3 in secondary at the narrowest that they have ever been. And we're determined to see further progress. As well as the Attainment Challenge funding, we continue to fund our Read, Write and Count with the First Minister and Read in Schools programmes, as well as the School Library Improvement Fund.
Michael Matheson.
I'm grateful to the Minister for her response. Presiding Officer, the Minister will recognise that pupil equity funding and strategic equity funding are central to helping to support schools and local authorities tackle the child poverty related attainment gap. Falkirk Council has recorded a further narrowing of its numeracy attainment gap due to actions which have been taken by schools and also by education teams through the support of the CEF funding. Given the importance of this funding, can I ask the Minister what impact data is being gathered in order to guide future decisions on the use of CEF funding?
Minister.
Well, with the support of pupil equity funding and strategic equity funding, the poverty-related gap in positive initial destinations for 2024 school leavers has reduced by 2/3 since 2009 to 10. The poverty-related attainment gap at NAT 5, higher and advanced higher, narrowed in this year's results, and the poverty-related attainment gap in primary school literacy is at a record low. So it's clear that this is having a hugely positive impact, and that's why the Cabinet Secretary has been very clear that this funding will continue through 26-27 to provide certainty to schools and to local authorities.
Thank you. Question 7, Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with Glasgow City Council regarding reports of a lack of sufficient school provision in Robroyston.
Minister Natalie Dawn-Innes.
Although it is the statutory duty of local authorities to manage their school estate, Scottish Government officials have been engaging with Glasgow City Council on this matter. It's also worth noting that through the £2 billion Learning Estate Investment Programme, the Scottish Government continues to provide substantial support to the Council for its school estate, including funding for a new Gaelic primary school and Limburn Academy.
Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In 2009, Glasgow City Council identified Robroyston as a community growth area and approved massive family-oriented housing developments under the condition that extended primary and secondary school capacity would follow. This was to be funded through this community growth fund. Young families have moved in under the guise that this extra capacity would follow suit, but we're now at the end of 2025 and there is still no new school provision, with Smithycroft Secondary School now at full capacity and the plan to install modular accommodation being wholly unsuitable unsuitable. I've spoken to dozens of parents who are now looking to move elsewhere. Rob Royston is right at the limit of the catchment area, and the walking route that Glasgow City Council suggests children take from Rob Royston to Smithycroft is through an unlit graveyard, clearly an unsafe route. So will the Minister join me and families from Rob Royston to walk this route to Smithycroft Secondary School to see the conditions and hear the family's concerns for herself?
Minister.
It's, of course, concerning to hear the family's concerns and disappointing. As I've said, we have been engaging with the local authority on this matter and have provided funding to support the school estate in this area. The member is asking, obviously I'm answering questions for the Cabinet Secretary today, and I'm more than happy to share the member's concerns with the Cabinet Secretary in terms of that request for a meeting.
And supplementary, Colin Beattie.
Can the Minister outline how the 2025-26 Scottish Budget, which the member didn't vote for, is supporting schools and local authorities to respond to the needs of Scotland's children and young people?
Minister.
The Scottish Budget 25-26 saw significant investment in our schools and local authorities to support our children and young people. It provided local authorities with £186.5 million to maintain teacher numbers, alongside continued funding of up to £200 million, as I've already said, for the Scottish Attainment Challenge to close that poverty-related attainment gap. Additional support for learning was strengthened with an additional investment of £29 million to help improve outcomes for all children and young people with additional support needs, in line with the Additional Support for Learning Act 2004, and will build on existing spend on inclusion to ensure the broadest possible reach. I hope that assures the member that those ongoing considerations and the previous budget worked to support our school and learning estate and, most importantly, our children and young people.
Thank you. Question 8 was withdrawn. That concludes portfolio questions in education and skills. Point of order, Douglas Ross.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. This is now the third day in a row I've tried to raise the issue about the court case between For Women Scotland and the Scottish Government. In the previous 2 attempts, the ministers have said they absolutely cannot comment on a live, ongoing case. I do not believe that. I think they actually can comment on a live, ongoing case. After First Minister's questions today, I understand the First Minister's official spokesperson has confirmed on the record that it is a choice of this government not to comment on the case that they have gone to court with to try and get biological males to be imprisoned in the female prison estate. It is not a legal requirement that they cannot. So I reiterate, the government spokesperson has confirmed they have chosen not to comment rather than they are legally prohibited from commenting. Now, that is directly opposed to what the Cabinet Secretary told this chamber repeatedly on Tuesday. So what actions do we have as backbench members to get truthful answers from government ministers? Can Angela Constance be recalled to this Parliament to explain why she told us she was legally unable to comment on a case that the government have now confirmed they are just choosing not to comment on that case? And what further action can we take in this Parliament to get answers on this serious issue?
Can I thank Douglas Ross for advance notice of the point of order? I think it's worth reflecting that there was an urgent question selected earlier in the week, which I think it's safe to say was a result of the fact that the presiding officer deemed that question to be admissible under Rule 7.5.1, and that while there are issues of sub judice, I think, attached to this, the presiding officer was satisfied that the bar of contempt had not been reached by the nature of those questions. While members should avoid any comment on the facts or the evidence of the individual case, it was allowed to open up discussion around policy issues relating to the case. It is for the Scottish Government, as the party to the case, to decide the level of detail it wishes to go into in the response to questions. That's perhaps as far as I'm able to advise on that aspect of the point of order. I think in relation to pursuing that further with the Cabinet Secretary, I think that's possible through the business manager making requests through the Bureau in the normal way, and I'm sure that would merit further discussion. But I thank Douglas Ross for advance notice of the point of order. With that, we move to the next item. There'll be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.